Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Arcelia. I am the chocolate maker, owner of Mission Chocolate based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And we are a brand that's about 6 years old. I originally learned to make chocolate in San Francisco, California with dandelion chocolate, hence my company name, Mission Chocolate.
Well, great. So, Arcelia, you've been a guest on Clubhouse in the past talking about chocolate in Brazil. And what I wanted to do this time was specifically talk about some of the challenges and some of the opportunities which are associated with being a chocolate maker in Brazil. So, for example, if I am a specialty chocolate maker, a craft chocolate maker, working almost everywhere else in the world, I am going to be able to bring beans from a lot of different origins. And that's not something that you can do in Brazil because of regulations. You are limited to using Brazilian origin cocoa beans. And that's where I want to start the discussion on Friday is what it means in terms of, you get over what we might think of, as many people might think of, as a limitation and turn it into an opportunity for creative expression.
Yeah, and it's not just cocoa beans, it's pretty much everything. In the US and in Europe, you really have access to the best of everything, the best of foil, packaging, sweeteners, alternative sweeteners, cacao. And in Brazil, we don't really have that option. And so we do what we can with what we have.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to this inaugural live stream of the Chocolate Life Live. Today, we're going to be visited. Yes, we're going to be visited by Arcelia Gallardo. And Arcelia, I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you very much for making the Chocolate Life Live and making this the first appearance. Can you give us, before we start off, can you give us a little bit of background into how you got started and where Mission Chocolate came from?
Hi, Clay. Of course, thank you for having me. Can you see my camera? Can you see
Yes, I
me?
can see you. It appears to be, for me, it's frozen. Um, I don't know what it is for other people. Perhaps you can turn the camera, stop the camera, and turn it back on, and we can get it. But I can hear you just perfectly. Uh, okay. No, you are completely frozen at your end. Um,
Okay, hold on one sec. There, it should be good, right?
that's perfect. Thank you very much. Great. All right.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so
You know what?
my
Just before you get into it, Arcelia, I can say that, the fact is I'm here in New York and you're in São Paulo, and we're connected via some server somewhere in the world, and we're having this interactive conversation. The fact that there are glitches every once in a while, let's live with them, because I remember, when we had landlines and things like that. I'm old enough to know that. So anyway,
of
let's
course,
not apologize for it. It's just a feature of the medium. Anyway, please proceed.
and so having said that, I am in the Atlantic rainforest, and so Sao Paulo, although it is such a huge city, it is situated in the Atlantic rainforest, and so I moved here about 6 years ago. My story is long and short at the same time. I've been in chocolate for about 20 years. I first started with a chocolate store as a chocolatier in Berkeley, California. And I I decided that I wanted to know more about chocolate. I wanted to get closer to the producer. I wanted to know more about cacao. And so slowly I started venturing into the world of cocoa. My first trip was to Tabasco, Mexico. I know, Clay, you have a really great relationship with Tabasco. And it was the first time that I saw cacao. And it really started this wheel of, wait, I saw cacao. Now, how does it get processed into chocolate? How does it get made into a bar? And so the store that I had in Berkeley, it was zoned only for retail. I couldn't process, I couldn't manufacture there. So there came the point where I had to make a decision. Do I stay here and continue being a chocolatier, which was nice, it was fun, or do I move to another location and begin processing chocolate? At that exact moment, my husband got a job offer to either move to Mexico or Brazil. And we thought, this is perfect. Like, this couldn't be the timing couldn't be more perfect. So we decided to accept the job offer in Brazil so that I could be closer to cocoa producers and really understand what that meant. Now, the other key thing in my life was that my apartment in San Francisco was next to Dandelion Chocolate. So I saw the factory being built. I saw the entire thing being created. And so after I sold my store in Berkeley, I walked into Dandelion and I asked if they needed help making chocolate, at least tempering, because that's the only part of chocolate that I knew how to do was temper. And so they said, yeah, of course, come in. Come help us out for a week. And that week turned into a month, and that month turned into 2 months and 3 months and 4 months. And I never wanted to leave. So I actually ended up really loving working at Dandelion. And because I wasn't really an employee, I was kind of someone that was helping out. When Greg, which is their cocoa sourcer, got to travel to all the other countries where they source cacao, I would get to tag along with him. And so I would see how he got to buy cacao. And so for me, that was really educational, right? I was learning to make chocolate with one of the pioneers of the bean to bar movement in California. And also I was traveling with Greg to see what it meant to purchase good quality cocoa, or what it meant to have a relationship with the producers and with the communities where you work. And so after about a year, my husband gave me the red flag, and he says, either, are you going to come? Is this still, you still want to do this?
He's in Brazil at this moment, right?
He's been in Brazil this whole time. For a year, he's been in Brazil, waiting for me. And so finally I had to say, okay, I'm going to come. This is great. I'm coming. And so this is how I landed in Brazil. And so once I got here, obviously, as soon as I got here, I thought, okay, I have been to cacao farms in Ecuador, in Belize, multiple times in Belize, in Venezuela, in Guatemala, in Mexico. And so these are going to be the sources for my cacao. And at Dandelion, I had made chocolate with Tanzania, Madagascar. And so these are the cacaos I'm going to be using when I get to Brazil. So naivete, I couldn't believe how innocent I was. So I arrived here and I asked Maya Mountain Cacao to ship me cacao to Brazil. And they're like, we can't figure it out. Like, it's not a thing. We can't just send cacao there. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of process. And so I said, okay, great. I'll ask Camino Verde in Ecuador to send me cacao. Can't do it. Too complicated, too difficult. And so I asked everyone to send me cacao. Gino from Meridian Cacao, everyone that I knew in the US with cacao, I asked them to send me cacao in Brazil. And we couldn't get it done. And so then I learned that in Brazil, we are not allowed, us small chocolate makers are not allowed to import cacao from other countries, both to protect the cacao in Brazil and the market as well. Mm-hmm. And so then I went to step 2, or plan B. I asked every expert. I asked you, I asked Chloe, I asked everyone in chocolate around the world, who is processing the best cocoa in Brazil? Who is making the best chocolate in Brazil? And I really received the same answer from everyone. It was like, oh, Brazil is really focused on commodity cacao. Brazil is not really focused on quality. Brazil is not producing craft chocolate yet, or craft cacao. And so it was really starting from zero, right? So when I arrived, it was okay. So the cocoa that I've been working with for the last year is not available to me. Not only the cocoa, the machines are not available to me either. And now I have to start in a country where I don't know anyone. I don't know the language, and I definitely don't know any cocoa producers. So what do we do? Like where do we go from here, right?
Mhm.
So Brazil now and Brazil 6, 7 years ago is a whole nother country. It
Mhm.
has turned day and night in the last 6 years that I've been here, because there's been a really large movement of people demanding better cocoa to make better chocolate. People, and by people, I should say like chocolate makers, right? Like, so when I arrived to Brazil, I didn't know anyone. And I am the closest in the US that I was to colleagues was chocolatiers and chocolate makers. And so I thought, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do in Brazil. I'm going to reach out to every chocolate maker or chocolatier, and I'm going to lure them into my house with chocolate, and they will be my friends. And so that's what I did. I just did a research. I figured out who was making chocolate in Brazil. And I asked everyone to come to my house so that we can taste chocolates from all over the world, so that we understand what's being sold internationally and where the quality of the cacao is outside versus inside.
Mhm.
And so that's really how our Bean to Bar Brazil Association got started. It was us eating chocolate together, talking about
Mhm.
these flavors that we couldn't get in Brazil. There was no way that we can ever replicate a Madagascar cacao in Brazil, right? We couldn't get the florals from Venezuela. We couldn't get the nuttiness from Ecuador. And so we were just like, okay, what are we doing? Like, what can we do to get Brazil on the landscape, not only of cacao, but also of chocolate? And so the association became a formal organization. We began doing things together. We began traveling to the Seattle Festival together. We began going to national festivals together. And people started to ask, well, what is Bean to Bar? Like, what is this association? And we really became the voice of what this movement was going to become.
Mhm.
And so 6 years later, we now are producing really amazing chocolate, but it wasn't without a lot of work. So coincidentally, I met the son of Fazenda Camboa. Fazenda Camboa is the cacao that I use the most. It's the largest organic farm in Brazil. And he lived around the corner from me in Brazil. And he told me, oh, my dad has a cocoa farm in Brazil. In Brazil, almost everyone you meet is going to tell you, oh, my family has cacao in Bahia, because it's just such a large industry. And so everyone tells you this, right? And so I kind of just shoved it off, and I was like, yeah, okay, nice, okay. And he's like, no, seriously, you should go visit. And so Ileus has a really nice chocolate festival every year. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to this chocolate festival. And at that time, Greg from Dandelion and Ryan from Parliament came to visit the sugar factory, which is the organic sugar that everyone uses in Bean to Bar, is in Sao Paulo. So they came to visit, and we thought, okay, so let's go visit this Fazenda Camboa together to see what it's all about. So the son forgot to tell me that it is the largest organic farm in Brazil, possibly the world. When he introduced me to his father, they were producing 70,000 tons of cacao. This is as much as some
In
countries.
one
Like,
farm, 70,000 tons.
yes.
That's remarkable.
And it was absurd. Because I was used to visiting Belize, and Belize is so cute compared to like Brazil. Like Brazil, one farm can produce as much as what the country of Belize can produce,
Hmm.
although the quality is right very different.
Quite different, yes.
But so I arrived, I tasted the cacao, and I thought, okay, I think I could do something with this. It's clean, it looks great. The processing is done very professionally. They know what they're doing. I made some chocolate. I sent it to some stores in the United States, and the feedback was pretty much all the same. This is awful. This is the worst thing I've ever had. This tastes like you were burning tires at the same time that you were making this chocolate. This tastes like a farmhouse catching on fire. And so I was like, wow. So what are we going to do? Like, to me, this was the best cocoa in Brazil. Now where are we? Like, now what are we going to do in terms of competing with the world? Within Brazil, this was a profile that was accepted. In Brazil, this is okay. In Brazil, these woody, smoky, earthy notes are pretty much what the palate in Brazil is used to. So it's not as shocking to us here as it was to people outside. And so then I thought, okay, so now I have to go to plan C, right? Like, what I can't compete with Dandelion making 70% 2-ingredient bars. Like, I just can't. Like, there's no way that I can beat Fruition and Letterpress and Dandelion and Patrick. There's no way, right? And so I thought, I'm going to do something that none of these other people can do that I have access to. So that means wild fruits, nuts, flavors, ingredients that no foreigner has ever had. So no American, no European. What haven't they had in chocolate yet that goes really well with chocolate that is extremely Brazilian? And so that's when I came across cupuaçu. And so cupuaçu is the cousin of cacao. In Brazil, you can go to any restaurant, any juice bar, any grocery store, and they have frozen cacao pulp, but also frozen cupuaçu pulp. The cupuaçu pulp is extremely vibrant. It's sour. It's really, the acidity is really high, but it's very tropical fruit, almost like a pineapple, banana, lychee.
Is it close to what we would consider to be soursop, or is it very, very different? Because I think
No. Yeah.
many people probably are more familiar with soursop than they would be with cupuaçu.
So soursop has a sweetness. Like, you could actually, it's really sweet. Cupuaçu has zero sweetness. It's almost like a passion fruit. Like when you eat a sour passion fruit, where it's just like, it hurts your mouth because it's so sour. So cupuaçu has this. And I knew nobody had had it because I have never had it. And I venture into the food industry a lot, the culinary industry. And if I had never had it, I knew no one else had ever had it. And so I decided to make my same 70% bar that I had made previously, fazenda camboa, cacao, and sugar. And then I added pieces of cupuaçu on top, sent it to the same people, best chocolate they've ever had. And I was like, wait, it's the same chocolate. Like, and so in my mind, because I really grew up in the, dandelion train of thought of 2-ingredient is what chocolate should be. And so for me, adding inclusions to the bars really felt like dirty. Like I was doing something like real that I shouldn't be doing, but I needed to do it to sell the chocolate. Otherwise, I wasn't going to sell the chocolate. And so cupuaçu was the first bar. I took it to Seattle. People went crazy over it.
Oh, I remember. I mean, I just love that combination of, and you're talking about candied cupuaçu, not
exactly
powdered or something like that. So yeah. No, absolutely.
And so, right. So the way that you do it is that you open the cacao or the cupuaçu fruit, which looks like a football. You open it up, and then the seeds fit, like the seed and the pulp together is like the palm of your hand, and it's really slimy and slippery. So you have to get scissors to cut the pulp, and then you take the seed. Most people will dry it because you can't eat it as a nut. But really the gold in Brazil is the pulp, because then you take that pulp and you can make it into ice creams, into juices, you freeze it, you sell it frozen. And so that's what I put on top of the chocolate. And so that really opened the door for me in terms of what Mission Chocolate would really become. So then our mission really started to be seeking these rare ingredients, like seeking all of these nuts and fruits that nobody really else had put into chocolate, right? Hazelnut is pretty known, right? The combination of hazelnut and chocolate, really famous. And I thought, it's delicious, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to do another hazelnut bar. So what nuts are in Brazil? So then I found the baru nut. Baru is, it grows on trees. It grows in the desert biome of Brazil. It naturally falls when it's ready. It falls to the floor. Families that live around this tree, because it grows wild. There's no farms of baru. It grows wild. Family that lives near will come with their bucket, put it in their bucket, and they take it to a community center to process, which means they're going to cut it. It's kind of like an almond. It has a really thick skin outside, so they cut it open. They take the baru nut and they roast it, and then they send it to me. And baru it tastes a little bit like a peanut. Like a cross between a peanut and an almond. It's amazing. It's good for the environment. It only gets processed by families. And so I thought, you can't convince me to use hazelnut when I can use baru. Like, there's just no way. And baru is also designated as a nut that's going to be extinct if we don't continue to preserve it and to consume it. And this is per Slow Food Brazil. And so it's a nut that to me has such an amazing story, so much more than what hazelnut has to offer. Nothing against hazelnut, I promise. I will eat a hazelnut in a minute.
But I think, Arcelia, if I can jump in here, and make the observation. Number one is that hazelnuts are not endemic to Brazil, and they don't grow in Brazil. And so what you have to do is you have to import them.
Well, they do grow. Some of them do grow here, but they're not native.
Okay, so I was astonished to find out, for example, that hazelnuts grow in the Netherlands. I had no idea that they grew that far north. I mean, I think of them in the Piemonte in Italy, but growing in the Netherlands, how is that the case? What I do want to do is I want to say, hello and welcome to everybody who is watching us on YouTube and Facebook around the world. I've thrown some comments in. We have people here who are from Brazil, people from the United States, Panama, Venezuela, and just want to welcome everybody and say that if you have a comment and if you have a question, you can type it into the comments box either on YouTube or in Facebook. We will see it here, and I will be able to ask that question of Arcelia. So Arcelia, you jumped in and just went full stream ahead, and you covered,
everything.
Well, not everything, but the topic of, you're in Brazil, you only have Brazilian cocoa, and there are very few other origins producing countries that are like that. For example, I know makers who are in Ecuador who are using Peruvian cocoa. I know makers who are in Peru who are using Ecuadorian cocoa, and they can bring cocoa in from all over the place. But Brazil, you're limited to, I think, cocoa from Ghana. It comes into one port. It can only be processed by the big. Well, no, you as a small maker should be able to get your hands on some of that cocoa, but it's extremely limited, and so you have to make, quote unquote, make do with whatever it is that you have. And one of the things that I would say is that I was in Sao Paulo and I went to Ilhéus in 2017 for Chocolate Bahia. I got a chance to be a judge for the Bean to Bar, the Premio that Zelia organizes. And then I was also there in 2020, just as the pandemic was breaking in Sao Paulo. Also had an opportunity this past year while in lockdown to be able to judge for the Premio. But even in that short period of time, the 3 years between 2017 and 2020, the diversity and the quality. So there are two things. You can ask the question, is this chocolate well made? And I think that, back in 2015, you'd say, the chocolate wasn't all necessarily well made. And, in 2020, as I was judging, all the chocolate was well made. I may not have liked the flavor profile, but in terms of just understanding the process and doing something interesting, leaps and bounds, just absolutely amazing work that had been done. And one of the things that the Premio focuses us only on dark chocolate and milk chocolate. I mean, they only have the two categories. There's
Yeah.
nothing with inclusions. There's nothing with flavorings. But when I was in Sao Paulo in 2020 for the chocolate festival there, I mean, one of the things that I was just astonished about is just the diversity
Yeah.
of bringing in all these flavors, which are native ingredients, nuts, baru, as you talked about, but
Yeah.
um, there are fruits that I'd never heard of before. I have trouble pronouncing as well. Um, but um, but the but the learning that had been done in terms of taking the cocoa and being able to extract from it, the greatest possible um, flavor. I mean, the
Yeah,
goal
the
of the chocolate maker,
potential.
I was going to say, I mean, genetics represents potential, and the goal of the
Yeah.
chocolate maker is to maximize the potential, which is represented by the
Mhm.
cocoa. And I think that this is the thing which I think represents the work. I've also think that, back in 2015, I would have said, ama, and I would have had trouble pointing at a
Yeah.
bunch of others. But now there's something like 100,
Yeah.
200 small chocolate makers. So boom, the explosion in growth is just really quite astonishing. We do have a question from Keith, who asks us about tasting notes. So you decided not to put tasting notes in your bars. Any particular reason why or why not?
Yeah. Hi, Keith. So that's a really interesting question because at Dandelion, we put tasty notes on the bars. And so I came from that, right? But I found that when I taste my chocolate today and when I taste it in 3 months and in a year, it has changed, it has evolved. And so I don't like putting it in a little prison of you're going to taste raisins, because if you taste it a year from now, you may not taste raisins. And so what's going to happen there? Are you going to mistrust me? Are you going to think something's wrong with your palate? I think that chocolate should taste the way you taste. So if you taste something in it, that's what the flavor notes are, right? And so I spend a lot of time teaching people to taste chocolate,
Mhm.
um, a lot of time. And so I I I know what's in my chocolate when I make it the flavor notes. But if someone tells me another flavor,
Mhm.
especially a Brazilian, if they tell me this tastes like jabuticaba, but I have
That's
already
preferred.
limited myself.
That's familiar. That's like
Jabuticaba.
I'm trying to remember. I don't remember.
It's complicated to say, but I have already said no, this tastes like raisins. It's different palates, different cultures, different memories of flavors, and so I don't put it for that reason, because I want you to taste what you taste, not what I taste with my Western palate.
Yeah, and I think that parallels my experience, as a
Yeah.
critic. When I started out, it was all about what I tasted, and I wanted to tell you this was good and this was bad. And then I had an experience actually in the middle of a tasting where I had done a great deal of preparation, and
Yeah.
somebody in the room just made a comment, and I go, I have to rethink everything I've thought about this. And so now my goal is to help you understand why you like what you like,
Yeah.
realizing, as you just pointed out, that I grew up in North America. I have a
Yeah.
particular set of flavors that I understand. I mean, I have been fairly Catholic in the sense of universal about going out there and engaging in tasting exercises, because if you've never
Yeah.
tasted anything, you don't have a flavor reference for it, you can't recognize
Right.
it.
Right.
But if you
And
grow
then
up in another culture, like if I were to
yeah.
say blueberry,
Mhm.
somebody who's not ever
Yeah.
had imported blueberries would have no idea what that was. And you go to me,
Yeah.
Jabuticaba, and I go, yeah, what the heck is that? And this is a major challenge. And as you pointed out, um, that if you're working with a minimally processed cocoa, where you're not adding vanilla, you're not adding a lot of
Yeah.
other things like that, you're not over conching, right, which
Mhm.
gets rid of a lot of the volatiles, and
Yeah.
then you have something which has got a a complex chemical background, and
Mhm.
that set of chemicals is going to evolve over time. They're just going to
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
recognizing that this is the case, it's all about what are you tasting, and there
Yeah.
are no wrong answers here, right? It's what you taste is what
Right.
you taste.
Yeah.
My goal is to help you understand what you're tasting and if you like it, why you like it, not
Mhm.
why you don't like it or something like that. Or to try to say that because you don't taste this,
Yeah.
you're not good at this or your taste is
Yeah.
wrong. What I
Yeah.
want to do is use that as a segue. You sent me a box, right?
Yeah.
And you said, Clay, do not open the box. So I have this box. I mean, all I have done is cut the tape to make it easy to open.
Let's
Do
see
you
what's
know what's in this
inside.
box? Do you know what's in this box?
I don't remember.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is this is live tasting unrehearsed. I'm opening up for the first time. And tell me what it is that I have here. I have a pau de mel, so I'm guessing honey, right?
Uh, it's like a Brazilian gingerbread.
So again, that makes sense, like a pão de queijo, a pau de mel, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Sort of. Okay. The aforementioned cupuaçu bar, and a goiabada, which I'm guessing is guava.
Guava.
Okay. So where would you like me to start in terms of the tasting and what should I do? And I have to say that, I was in Sao Paulo in 2020 and had a chance to have the Romeo and Juliet confection as part of my breakfast, and then going to the festival and being able to taste your interpretation of Romeo and
Yeah.
Juliet was really, really quite fun. And so I am all yours. Tell me where I should begin.
So pão de mel is a milk chocolate with spices. I think that will it will be best for last because of the spices, right? We would prefer to taste the most pure version
Okay.
of the chocolate. And so I would start out with guayabada because guayabada is a more subtle fruit than
Okay.
cupuaçu. Cupuaçu is really loud and acidic. So let's start with guayabada. But I had one
So,
more comment. Go ahead.
okay, no,
What?
I'm going to say while I was opening this, I'm
Yeah.
just looking at the papers, right, the wrappers, and if you could spend a few seconds talking about the inspiration, these all appear to be organically based, so leaves and things like that.
Yeah.
So please, I'm also interested in knowing the inspiration. But
Yeah.
I interrupted another comment you were going to be making.
So, okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back a little bit to that comment about flavors. So, and then I'll come back to that. So I have always learned that when chocolate ages, it changes, but I never knew how or what
Mhm.
happened. And so I did that test. I kept a sack of cacao from 3 different farms from 2017 and I aged it until today. And
Yeah.
I will now be creating a kit that gives you a chocolate bar from Fazenda Camboa 2017 and 2021 so that you understand what happens when you age cacao. So the two chocolates are completely different. If you taste them, you will not think it's the same farm or the same cacao. And so I've
So,
done that.
so you aged the beans, and so you make
Yes,
chocolate from two different harvests,
yes.
right? As
Two
opposed
different
to,
bars. Yes.
so I made the chocolate in 2017 and I've aged it. So two different things.
I made the chocolate at the same time a few weeks ago,
Cool.
Harvest 2021 and Harvest 2017, to show specifically what happens when you age beans. And if I were to put flavor notes on that, again, after, it happens with chocolate as well, right? If you let it sit there, it'll evolve into something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now the packaging. So for me, cacao and chocolate is a gift of nature. And so all of my packaging is an homage to nature, to the earth, to the plants, to the animals that roam in the Amazon jungle, in the Atlantic rainforest. And so all of my packaging is made by a woman in Sao Paulo who is a mother. I consciously make an effort to first hire women and mothers because I know that's like the toughest thing in the world. And so most of my team, both at the factory and everyone that I hire to do work for me, probably going to be a woman. And Clay, you were here and you were
Yeah.
astonished at the amount of
Oh,
women that are
yeah.
in Brazil.
Well, not just the number of women who are involved in the chocolate business, but the preponderance
Yeah,
of women-owned businesses and
yeah,
women-driven businesses is just really quite remarkable. And even in businesses where there's a couple involved. So I'm thinking
yeah.
Mestizo with
Or
Rogerio,
Baiani.
or
Uh-huh.
obviously Juliana and Tuta. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really, really quite an interesting partnership. What I want to do is I want to get to a question from
Go ahead.
Keith about Kupuasu. He'd like to know, is it similar to tamarind?
Yeah, that's a really good comparison. It's similar to tamarind, except cupuaçu has more of a fermented yellow fruit, or like a yellow tropical fruit note. So tamarind, which is also a flavor that I grew up my entire life consuming as a drink, as a candy, is acidic. It's like a flat acidic, maybe a little bit of a brown tone somewhere in there. But cupuaçu is acidic, and then it goes floral. It goes overripe bananas, a little bit of lychee, passion fruit. And so it really it's an explosion in your mouth. So it's similar on the acidic level, that it's not sweet at all. It's just a strong acidity. But the array of flavors, of aromas, is much more broad with cupuaçu.
Gotcha. I'd also like to introduce another question from Barbie Van Horn. In Seattle, Barbie, I'm sad that, the Northwest Chocolate Festival was canceled this year. I didn't get a chance to travel to Seattle. But you've asked Arcelia, when you say, will you sell the bars together? What I'm doing is I'm assuming you mean the 2017 and the 2021 chocolates. You'll be selling them as a set, correct?
Yeah. So this is going to be called our Harvest Kit, our Brazilian Harvest Kit. And it showcases 3 farms, 2 harvests from each farm. And so that will be for sale maybe in about the next 2 days or so. And we have a very limited amount of those kits. And so once they're gone, they're gone.
Here in the United States?
There will be a few in the United States. But I think, yes, there will be a few in the US.
As I seem to remember, you're traveling to the US fairly soon?
Yes, December 24th.
So you're gonna be bringing one of these? I'm happy to pay whatever it is.
Maybe, of course. Yeah.
So please do. Barbie, perhaps what, these comments are, persistent on YouTube and in Facebook. Perhaps what will happen is that Arcelia will get an opportunity to be in touch with you. And if she brings some of this to the United States, the two of you can cooperate on in getting one of these to you. What I want to do, in the time we have, because I want to be respectful for everybody's time and set some expectations, is I opened up the goiabada, and I mean, from a foot away, just the aroma. I don't know if you saw me react. It was just like, whoa. I mean, it is bright and aromatic. There's a bottom from the cocoa, but the fruit acidity of it, right? And the floral fruity nature is just absolutely astounding. Absolutely astounding. People just, here is the mold, right? And it's a beautiful mold, and it's extreme, it's held up. I mean, the quality, the temper, the fit and finish is really, really good. It's a little soft. Is that to be expected for this chocolate?
No, it should have a snap. So maybe in the travel, the weather.
It's also a little warm in here. I mean, it may be 5 degrees outside, but it's a little warm inside.
I don't want to disturb while you're.
No, I mean, the initial impression. So I made sure that what I did was I got a piece of chocolate with the candied guava in it.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things I know about myself is that I key in on texture. And so for me, biting into the candied guava and feeling that chew, right, as a part of the bite of the chocolate and the overall melt and the way they two things go together, is really quite lovely. It's not overly sweet. It's not overly bitter. But the fruit, the guava, is adding this nice, bright, sweet fruit, right, flavor to it. I won't have long enough to let the long aroma, or the long aftertaste, fit into it. But shortly, the short is very, very clean. It gets out of the mouth very clean. It melts very easily, and it's a chocolate that I would call more-ish. you just saw me take my second bite, and if it weren't for the fact that I got two other chocolates to try here,
Yes.
I might do serious damage to this, and I would probably do serious damage to this before the end of the day or the end of the weekend. But yeah, again, there's a really, really very interesting textural element,
Yeah.
right? And I love the way visually what you've done. Excuse me, I'm looking away to get it. Visually, the back of the bar has got these crunches, not these crunches, but you've put the guava into the back of the bar and covered it with chocolate. It just is a really, really nice presentation. And I'm going, I need to break off this piece. So there's a piece of guava in it, right? And you made it easy for me to figure out where it
Yes.
is. But just really, really quite lovely. Yeah, no, yeah.
So let's open the kupuasu now.
Right. And what I would say is, back in 2015, and this is something that you pointed out, that there is there has traditionally been, or for conventionally been, a kind of sort of metallic or almost metallic earthy component to a lot of Brazilian cocoa. And as you said back in, when you first went to the Northwest Chocolate Festival, people were going, this is awful. They were reacting to that taste. And certainly in the Premio in 2017, when I was judging, I got a sense of that, right? And not really certain about where it was coming from. But that flavor of terroir that I think of as quintessentially Brazilian is completely absent from that bar. And is that because there's a better understanding of genetics, or is there a better understanding of post-harvest processing, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I think that the whole country, including like nonprofit organizations that devote their time to improving cocoa, every year have been doing conferences or online schools to really improve what we call flavor cocoa in Brazil. And so last week, I was a judge for the SICI, for the Center in Innovation of Cocoa Awards, where they gather cacao from all over Brazil and they give people the feedback of the profile. The final few get made into chocolate, and then we taste it and then vote for the best cocoa in Brazil. And so this is now in the third year. So every year that Premios Bean to Bar Brazil, that the Cocoa of Excellence Award happened, people participate in the Paris one. Every time that this happens, it improves all the cocoa. And so the continuation of these awards and the conferences and us talking about what's going on has improved both the chocolate and the production of cocoa.
And if I can, I mean, one of the reasons why I've been interested in working in producing countries is that, for example, if you look at very early on, the breakout company in terms of producing at origin but being popular globally was Picari. And one of the reasons why is we could say that, Santiago spent more time out of Ecuador than he did in Ecuador. And what he was doing is he's bringing his understanding of what foreign markets wanted to taste and bringing it back. And it's really, really important. This was, driven home to me, around El Ceibo in Bolivia, where there was a 2-year window where there was an international consultant and management that was really interested in the notion of selling internationally. But when the management changed, as it does every 2 years, and when the money to pay for the consultant disappeared, that what happened is that the people who were left behind had never been out of Bolivia and had not had a whole lot of experience tasting chocolate from outside of Bolivia. And the quality of the product just went somewhere else entirely because the people who were making it had no idea, what to do. Or they had no idea how to make chocolate that would appeal to markets other than Bolivians. So I opened up the Cupuaçu bar, and it doesn't have nearly the aroma on it. And it could be just that my nose is shot.
No, it doesn't have the aroma that the guava has.
Okay, and you've decided not to cover, right, the bits of Cupuaçu. They appear to be bigger. I don't know if that's true or not. But I think that the last time I talked to you about this, I said, bring a bag of this cupuaçu back
I
when
know.
you come the next time. And
I
again,
know.
if you have room in your luggage and you can bring any of this, I'm happy to pay for it. You know, it's interesting. The aroma of the guava is so much greater,
Yes. Yeah.
but the fruit acid flavor profile in the guava is so much lower.
Yes.
The cupuaçu doesn't have nearly the aroma, but when you put it in your mouth, it's just bang, right? It's just there, and
Yeah.
and you know, there's almost a Jolly Rancher-ish kind
Mhm.
of think when people think it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's okay, yeah. I mean, it's real fruit. I can see it's real fruit, but there is something which is just really
Yeah.
interesting about the way the flavor changes over time. I mean,
Yeah.
the chocolate is also a little more present here than it
Yeah.
was in the guava, but in a very, very nice way. So I'm really, really, um, really excited about that. Um, Yum, yum, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I am going to get a little palate cleanser here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And before I go further, what I'd like to do is I'd like to say thank you, everybody who's here. Thank you for the comments. I've shared some of them. Keith and Thomas and everybody. Bobby, thank you for the comment about the idea of the harvest bar. But what I'd like to say is please um, like the video and subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that number one is it helps drive engagement around YouTube. It's a small channel and I hope to grow, but other people will see the video as well, and we can get more people to watching these things live, which is what I'd like to do, so that people have an opportunity to engage directly with my guests. And so I've hit the jackpot today. I mean, I think it's been a fascinating conversation. I've learned quite a bit, and I've got a chance to taste some really quite wonderful chocolates this morning. And
So
the
now
third
you're gonna
one,
open. Yes. So okay,
okay,
the first two
I wanted
were
to show the label.
nuts, or is part of my biomes line. So the first two make up 2 of 5 bars that I have chosen to represent each biome of Brazil. The rules are it should grow wild, it should benefit communities that grow them, it should not require irrigation, it should taste good, native to Brazil. And so that becomes my little biome kit. Now you're venturing into my Brazilian desserts kit. And so Brazil is the king of sugar. Nobody likes sugar more than Brazilians. And so what that means is with my dark chocolates, it was very complicated to convince Brazilians to come over to the bean to bar side and stop buying mass market chocolates if I didn't offer to them something sweet. And
Mhm.
so there was born my Brazilian desserts line. So I took some of the most popular Brazilian desserts and I made them into chocolate bars. Pão de mel is a tea cake of sorts that you have as a snack. 3 o'clock, it's a snack. It is what we would call in the US like a gingerbread. So it's soft, it's spicy, so it cloves, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, any warm spice you have in your kitchen. That's what you put in here, and then and then you cut it into squares, and then you dip it in chocolate, and so it ends up being a chocolate covered, squishy, spicy bread. And I decided this is going to get made into a chocolate bar. So that's the one you're eating today.
Okay. And I want to highlight the quote from Lynn. Thank you very much. And a shout out to everybody, as well as again highlighting from Keith, who has this tasting note is taste a piece of the bar without the patch of fruit and then one with it. And so Keith, what I will do is when I have the opportunity, I will do that. It's something I do anyway, but I will make an opportunity to do it. So I'm opening this now. So I'm going to get. Right.
Yeah, so that's the pão de mel, my first milk chocolate.
So also interesting with the other bars, you had the back of the bar with the fruit showing up. And with
Yeah.
this bar, because there's no inclusion, I'm looking at the bar and I'm looking at the mold.
Well,
Got
the
it.
inclusions are in the chocolate, so
Right, right.
technically,
They're
yeah,
ground into the chocolate. They're
yeah,
not added. And Barbie says she needs to go to Brazil just for the gingerbread cake experience.
yeah,
You know, Barbie, there are so many reasons you want to go to
yeah,
Brazil.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
that you know, it's been just really a fabulous experience both times I was there. From a food and from a culture perspective,
yeah,
just I mean, like Peru, not like Peru. There's a fusion of a bunch of different cultures. So in Peru, we have this
yeah.
fusion of Asian and then the Amazonian and Spanish. And you go to
Mhm.
Brazil and you have it's a different kind of fusion. It's Portuguese and there's a lot of native stuff and a huge Italian as well. And so and who knows how many others there are. You know, it's all there. And it's just there's some really, really striking unusual food combinations that are there. I mean, Arcelia, you and I spent an
Yeah.
afternoon um, walking through. I forget
Villa
which.
Madalena.
Yes, and just again, just and having seafood, and it's just absolutely remarkable. So this
Yeah,
is the pau jamel.
the panjimel, something that your grandmother would bake. You have
Hmm.
it at tea time with some coffee,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I'll let you finish.
Well, first thing I will say, right? Um, Number one is you don't mention what the cocoa percentage is here, and I don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to know. Um, but um, I differentiate between eating chocolate recreationally and eating chocolate professionally. And when I eat chocolate recreationally, I want dark milk chocolate. So I want things that, in some respects, I don't have to think about, right? I'm not analyzing it. I want to put it in my
Mhm.
mouth and I want it to put a smile on my face, right?
Mhm.
And this is this is what I'm looking for when I want something which I'm going to relax to, right? I'm going to put my mouth. The flavors are associated, positively with childhood memories of cooking
Yeah.
and um, primarily around this time of the year, more holiday time, winter spices, um, you know, and but there's this backbone of the chocolate, which is underneath the milk,
Yeah.
which elevates this from what I would think of as candy, right? So
Yeah.
there is this different experience with it. It's not sweet, it's not candy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm saying, yeah, yeah, I want this. What do I want? Yeah, I mean, and I could have it a little bit for breakfast, or I could have it for an afternoon snack. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you know,
That
uh,
makes an excellent hot chocolate if you just melt that and add a little bit of
sure. Now,
whatever.
I happen to know that you and I discussed the idea of having caipirinhas today,
Yes.
but you happen to have a bar of a distilled cacao, a bottle of, excuse me,
Yeah. I
of a
have a lot
distilled
of
cacao
things
fruit,
in here.
a distilled cacao fruit spirit. Can you tell
Yeah.
me about the pairing? I mean, with this cacahuatl, I mean, is that what it's called?
Yeah, cacahuatl.
Oh, Um,
So, like what you would like to have this with,
yeah, I
or what do
mean,
you
would it
mean?
go with either of the three bars that you sent me?
Yeah, I think that so I do a lot of also what we call harmonizing events.
Mhm.
And so I think that that would go really well with the cupuaçu because it has that fruitiness from the cacao. So it's a spirit made with cacao pulp. And so the
Mhm.
cacao pulp would harmonize really well with the acidity of the
That fruitiness of
cupuaçu.
it. Gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the Pan de Mel was my first milk chocolate bar. I never considered making a normal milk chocolate because that I didn't find that fascinating. And so that was the entry to me making sweet chocolates. And so now I have a line of 25 bars. And so there's 5 desserts, 5 biomes. I have 5 pure a la dandelion, just 70% bars. And then the others are things that just don't fit into anything, like Two Rivers,
Hmm.
my Barujá, which is a janduja made with baru nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's just things that don't have a category, right? Like I can't place them anywhere, and I like to be part of that. I like to create things that don't exist, and that's really what I love doing here.
No, absolutely, and it shows. And what I'd like to do is, believe it or not, we've been here just shy of an hour, which is a little longer than I had thought I wanted to go today. What I want to remind people is, you can see that there's a little ticker going across the bottom of the screen. Join TheChocolateLife.com, and to stay up to date with what these interviews are going to be. I'm going to be trying to do this time, which is noon on Fridays, on a regular basis. I won't be doing this the day after Thanksgiving, but I've got a couple of really, really interesting guests lined up between now and the end of the year. So Friday noon, put it in your calendar. We're going to be doing a live stream interview from now on YouTube and in Facebook. And it's 2 hours later in the day on a Friday, Arcelia. I think that you've earned very, very much the opportunity to go and drink. And Thomas, you talk about some bald guys who interviewed chocolate makers not that long ago. I am, if you are here in the room and you want to add a comment about other people that you'd like to see as a part of the series, please add it. You can also go to thechocolatelife.com. If you're a member, you can add comments to posts. You can post these, ideas for topics that you'd like covered, as well as personalities, makers or otherwise, that you'd like to see here as part of the Chocolate Life Live interview series. And with that, Arcelia, a closing word before we end the day, and other to say, thank you very much for being here in this inaugural Chocolate Life Live interview. It's been fabulous. I've had great chocolate, and as always, lovely to have a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Clay. I love talking chocolate. I could stay here for 5 more hours discussing the chocolate industry and what's been going on here in Brazil. I would like to say thank you for everyone watching. And if you have any questions for me, I'm always on social media. You can get me on Instagram. And I love to talk chocolate. And I always like to tell people that anyone that wants to learn to make chocolate, I have a blog that teaches people to make chocolate. And I offer advice to anyone, especially in cocoa producing countries, on how to get started making chocolate, because I think that's an important thing for cocoa producing countries to do. And I know that the resources are not there, so I'm happy to do it. You just send me an email and I'm there.
Great. And if you go to Instagram for Discover Choc, there is a post advertising or promoting today's live stream. The Arcelia's Instagram channel is linked there. You can just click across to it and connect with her directly. And just from a privacy perspective, I don't like posting phone numbers and I don't like posting email addresses on these guys. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to let you get connected with her directly. And again, last thing for me, please like the video. We've got 1 like so far. Please like the video, subscribe to the Chocolate Warriors channel, click on the bell for notifications. And if you're watching this on Facebook, it will be here. And this video will be on YouTube and it will be on Facebook for you to be able to watch at any time in the future. And with that, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much for Arcelia. We'll be back next Friday at noon for the Chocolate Life Live. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks.